Hello and welcome back to the channel. You'll have to excuse me dressed up in extra warm clothes today, an old knackered old jumper that I bought many years ago. It's cold in the house at the moment. I think it's about 10 degrees in here. Still workable, but I misjudged my log delivery and I'm eking out the logs that I've got until the beginning of next month. So I'm okay. I don't want anyone to feel sorry for me or anything. But yes, I've made a stupid decision. Now, I have no central heating in my house. It's an old 2 up, 2 down Victorian house, and decided, well, I've never liked central heating. It reacts strangely with me, and we never put it in. I've been here 30 odd years. We do have log burners and I love them, and I love the warmth and the heat from them. One of the decisions I made many years ago, before I was really aware of what was going on in this world, although I had, I suppose, knowledge of certain things, is that I didn't want to give the money that I was earning to the big six, the big utility companies, because they're big corporations and they treat you like numbers. You're just, they've got so many customers and they seem to make huge, massive profits. And we've seen how the fuel increase has been. We've seen also how the government have decided not to help out pensioners by cutting the winter fuel allowance and things like that. And as you know, I often talk about taking back responsibility and being responsible for ourselves. And so I didn't want to give the money to those. I give the money to a local chap, a small business, one-man business, who supplies logs. And I've been doing this for several years now. And we have a great relationship. And he delivers on certain days and what have you. And if I get really short, I can always go with my van and turn up at his yard and say, give us half a bag and, big bag. And it's all good. And it's only a few days away now before the next delivery. So I'm just eking out what I've got. And of course, so in other words, I've taken the responsibility and I've cocked it up a little bit, but that's my issue. I don't want to give the money to the big six. I don't believe in large corporations. And that's really what I wanted to talk about in today's video. And you'll notice that some of my videos now are not doing the big, oh gosh, what's just happened over here and all this frightening stuff that many other of the YouTubers in this space are doing. Because I've realized that many of the videos that they do when they do this, they're saying, oh, there's something frightening about to happen. Months go past. I mean, when I go back and look at some of these guys who've put out these videos, and the thing that they were talking about has not happened, or at least not happened as quickly. And I think it's a shame to put people into fear about something that may or may not happen. However, there are basics, there are basic principles, there are basic things that I like to talk about that gets hopefully people to think about. Now, I'm not saying I'm right on any of these things, but when it comes to corporations, I suppose, as I've mentioned many times, I very much support small, family-run, one-man band type businesses who care about their customers, depend on their customers, and offer the best service they can. Same with farming. Again, we've mentioned that many times, how we need more farmers so that we can produce more food, more locally, more seasonally. And I think that is a benefit to humanity, that a town, as it used to be, was surrounded by small farms. You could go and visit the farms, you could see the quality of the food, you could talk to the farmer, you could understand how the food was produced and the provenance of it. These days, as we've seen with supermarkets and the food that goes into it, we've no idea really, other than the packaging and the ingredients they put on it, and sometimes in complicated language or deceptive language to reveal what's actually in the products. On the whole, we know that mostly the food in supermarkets, these great big conglomerates, again, which give the illusion that they care for the customer by keeping the price low, but actually Not really, because they're not supplying wholesome food that's actually beneficial to people. And of course, with all their facial recognition technology and their digital processes now to try and force people not to use cash, so that when you buy something is no longer private, they have all your data. Again, it's these big corporations that give the illusion that they're doing good for everybody by lowering the prices and to a certain degree, a certain level of service. But actually, are they as beneficial as we think? Many of these big corporations, in my opinion, are really there to serve themselves, to serve the board members, and these mysterious people who are the investors in all of this, the shareholders. And the shareholders seem to come first, not the customers, or indeed the staff, the people who work. It seems to me that corporations now have this thing called HR departments, human resources. And I mean, just the words itself conjures up something rather frightening. It used to be personnel, and you would have somebody you could talk to. It seems on the larger these big corporations get, the more separated are the people who actually work for them from the managers above. And everybody seems to be pressured, put under stress, and have ridiculous targets, which again keeps them slaving away. I was talking to my sister the other day, and she works, I suppose, for a corporation, for a trust. She's a nurse. And she said, you know, if you're ill, you need to take time away and you let the body recover, take whatever remedies you feel is appropriate. And she said, but you're made to feel extremely badly if you take time off work. And yet, surely you need to take the time off work to be as efficient and healthy as possible, so that when you go back to work, you can do a good job. People are working extremely long hours for these big corporations. And it seems to me that mostly, if you work for corporations these days, you've become effectively like worker bees, drones. Your personality is stamped on, your individuality is obliterated. You have to adopt to these big corporates' policies, wear their uniform. Perhaps you give the illusion, there is the illusion that you can suggest ideas and improvement, but you meet glass ceilings. I know that, you know, like many of us, we are forced into using these dead entity corporations, and there's a huge corporate takeover to everything. And you wonder, well, actually, whose benefit is this for? Is it for individuals? Is it for really the men and women of this country? Or is it that the money is being sucked and taken away to overseas banks for the benefit of the elites? And it does seem a bit like that. We've seen so many takeovers, for example. Small businesses get to a certain stage, then suddenly in sweeps the corporates who take them over and then strip out some of the lines, the product lines that smaller company were doing, perhaps because customers enjoyed them. And they say, no, you're not going to have that. We're only going to sell the most popular lines. So therefore, individuality, bespoke products get removed. And of course, then we just see a more blanding. And if you go down to the high street, up and down the land, and you see in the shops, you'll see the big chains, you'll see the convenience stores, that is one or two mainstream names that have ousted the smaller corner shops or the smaller convenience stores that were struggling. The old department stores, they're all disappearing. And we see the big bland names trying to reduce, of course, the cost of everything to entice customers in with their big buying power and all of that. And the individual person, man to man, person's a dodgy word to use these days in this space, because we're not persons, we're men and women and we're people. We're not persons under legislation. That's just all made up. And we're seeing this sort of blanding. We see the uglification of the country. We see the one size fits all. We know about the the one world government who wants to have one size fits all for everybody. But that's not the case. We're all individuals. We all have individual needs. And there's something rather lovely about having bespoke, craft, handmade products rather than mass produced stuff that's all the same. Sadly, it seems to me, though, that people have been so brainwashed and they accept the bland. The human psyche, it seems, likes to conform. And so if everybody's wearing one particular brand of something, whatever it is, everybody else wants it. And we see that in schools. I mean, children shouldn't be going to schools and being brainwashed and turned into state slaves, of course, with the state education system in which the children are not really inspired to ask questions and be individuals. But we see it in the playground and the stress. A friend of mine told me now that one of the things that kids must-have thing is a certain type of water cup, a water container. And it has to be branded with a certain corporate name. Now, a few years ago, well, many years ago, about 20 years ago, my son wanted to have a certain brand of, I think, trainers and what have you, actually cut the name, cut into his hairstyle. You'll see people wearing clothes with the brand name, advertising the brand for free, in fact, paying for the privilege. I remember working for a well-known brand when I was entertaining in the old days outside a shop in Oxford Street, and I was paid on stilts as an entertainer to entice people into the store because they had a certain discount going on and people could go in. Now, this was a major clothing, very upmarket clothing line. And we were told we had to wear the T-shirts with their names strapped across the front. Fair enough. They were paying me a few £100 to do this. That was, that was the gig. I needed the money, and so we did it. But afterwards, they said to me, "Would you like to keep the T-shirts?" And some of my colleagues who were also on this job said, "Oh, great, thanks very much." And I said, "No, I'd rather not." And the woman at the shop said, "Well, but it's a name of brand, I'm not going to say what it is." She said, "But it's a so-and-so T-shirt." And I said, "But you've just paid me good money to stand outside your shop and advertise your brand. I'm not going to do that for free and go out into the world and advertise your brand for free. Why would I want to do that? If I kept your T-shirt, it would be underneath like a vest, and I wouldn't be doing it because I'm not going to work for you for free." But you'll see plenty of people wanting to advertise that brand because they want to be part of something. They've lost the act of being individuals, standing up for themselves, being responsible for their own actions. And I see this as a worrying thing. You may remember I had Richard Jeffs on the show talking about stakeholder capitalism. And this is all part of it, that we're all becoming more inclined to work and accept this dead entity corporate world rather than the individual, bespoke, handmade, quality world of individualism, of people going about their business, offering something unique and wonderful that has a lot of love and personal effort and skill into that product. Think of, I suppose, artists, painters, potters, weavers, people who, tailors, but people, they don't want to do that. They don't want to invest in that on the whole. They'd rather go and get something from certain stores, perhaps T-shirts and jeans and things that have been mass produced overseas in potentially sweatshop environments and for nothing. And then those things are so disposable and end up in landfill and other places because nobody repairs anything anymore. And it seems such a shame. So I've tried my best to avoid as much as possible these big corporations because I don't want to give them my money or my attention, because they seem to not really have humanity at their heart. They seem to have their own greed and all of that. Of course, you have to do what you have to do, and we all have to survive how we do. And of course, we all end up using some of them. And I'm not saying that all corporations, that a corporation in and of itself is a bad thing. But in this day and age, at the moment, they seem to be completely out of control, swallowing up small businesses. And the government, of course, has gone down that route. We know that they're registered on Dun & Bradstreet, on Companies House. The councils, public authorities are no longer what they once were. The court system, the police, excuse me, getting over a cold, all of that in the corporate world. And the corporation, corp for corpse, is a dead entities, not for men and women of this world. And we see that with the takeover and the push towards getting rid of farming and all these sort of small businesses in which we're taxed to the nth degree. Not that I agree with taxes, and of course one pushes back against all of this notion and say, well, where is your authority coming from? So it's, for me, taking back the responsibility. If I've misjudged where my logs are coming from or when the next delivery is, that's down to me. And you learn from that, you plan better next time round. I'm very much aware that people love convenience, and they'll think, Richard, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be sitting in the cold and and worry about getting logs, when I can press a button and somebody else, a big corporation, will supply me with the gas. But at the same time, or the electricity, at the same time, they might incentivize you to have a smart meter so that they can read the meter and keep the costs down and you can see how much you're spending. Not really seeing a bigger picture of how a smart meter is radiating, perhaps taking more data than you realize, is spying on you and is potentially a health hazard. And so for me, I don't want any of that. And I want to remain, as far as I can, independent and using my own common sense and critical thinking. Of course, that's just me. A lot of people out there would totally disagree. And of course, they're at liberty to do so. But it's nice to have the option to be oneself rather than a worker drone just complying and ending up in a 15-minute city unable to go anywhere. Thank you for watching.